So our next reader is the amazing Diana Salier, who is a fucking awesome poet. She has a new chapbook out called Wikipedia Says It Will Pass. She has a full-length book coming out soon called Letters from Robots. And, you know, I first met her because she basically used to beat me up at the Lexington and take my drink money, which actually, that part is true. And, like, I would have, like, terrible liver damage if it wasn't for her. So it's probably, I should actually thank her. She, like, saved my life. And actually, she kind of got her start. She kind of got her start as like an insult poet. She would kind of go door to door to people's houses and insult them with poetry. And, you know, she would just kind of walk around the neighborhoods and do this. And, you know, and she kind of lived off tips. So it really, people had to feel like her insults were sufficiently kind of tailored to them personally and sufficiently poetic for them to feel like it was like worth giving her a tip. And occasionally she would hit the jackpot and someone would be really like, she would insult someone really profoundly and poetically and they would be so insulted they'd give her $100 and she'd be like, yeah. You know, but she could never skip a house. If someone wasn't home, she had to just sit on their doorstep till they got home and then insult them with poetry. And so it was kind of a time-consuming occupation, not perhaps the most lucrative. And then one day she actually came to the house of Suze Orman, who lives up in Pacific Heights, the financial guru and you know, money expert who has more money than like 10 investment bankers put together. And like she started insulting Suze Orman with like regular, you know, sestinas, and Suze Orman was like, "Fuck that noise! You're going to insult me with a fucking epic poem, like in heroic couplets or like a whole stanza format, like Childe Harold or Childe Roland or one of those fucking childs. You're gonna fucking do it, and I'll pay you $1,000 an hour if you complete the job satisfactorily." So she was like, "All right, okay." So it was on, and so she was sitting there like insulting Suze Orman with poetry, and like Suze Orman was sitting there kind of taking notes and listening to going, and she felt like she was being scored and judged. So she kept trying harder, and like the hours went by, and like she was so hungry she couldn't ask Suze Orman for food because that felt rude. She kept going. She was like, the hours went by and she like got more and more layers of metaphor so that Suze Orman's failings as a person were kind of also the failings of the human race, and like the polar ice caps and the collapse of the economy and the Wall Street bailout and blah blah blah, the extinction of the dodo and blah blah. It got more and more complicated, and she like just kept going, and like Suze Orman was just kind of sitting there kind of nodding, and she finally like she was insulting her so hard that, you know, she started like hallucinating, and like then she started to go blind because she was just concentrating so hard. It took so much effort to keep it kind of straight, like all the rhymes and all the shit in her head. And like finally she was like out, she didn't even know how many hours had gone by, but she started to like turn insubstantial and like vibrate through the floorboards, and she like, you know, she was like miles above the earth and also at the center of the earth, and she was like at the beginning of time, at the end of time, and she could see the universe being destroyed and a new universe being born, and like or maybe it was our universe being born and the previous universe being destroyed, and like all moments were one to her, and she could see energy coming off all living beings, and she insulted everything, but she was still insulting Suze Orman with poetry the whole time, even though she was like at the center of the universe. And, you know, finally she kind of ceased to exist, and then she came back to reality and realized that actually she was Suze Orman and Suze Orman was her, and they were one person, and like actually she was just sitting there insulting herself. And, you know, she was already fabulously wealthy, and she'd just given herself like 100 hours of free therapy. So she was even richer because she didn't have to pay for therapy. But she still went down to Lexington and stole my drink money. So, but, you know, I still love her. Please welcome Diana Salier.